Bonjour everyone, I'm Alain and welcome back to Paris Top Tips. Today's video is the second episode of my new series about Paris restaurant culture. The first episode, released just last week, had a tremendous success, reaching more than 50,000 views in only 7 days. So thank you very much for that. In this new chapter, I want to help you understand something that confuses a lot of visitors to Paris. The real difference between a café, a brasserie, a bouillon, and a bistrot. And yes, throughout the video, I'll be pronouncing those words à la française. These restaurants may look similar, but in Paris, they represent very different experiences, atmospheres, and histories. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly where to go, what to order, and what to expect in each of them. Let's begin with the most iconic Parisian institution, the café. Often when visitors hear the word café, they immediately think of places like the Café de Flore or Les Deux Magots, and imagine famous writers such as Sartre, Hemingway, or even earlier Verlaine and Rimbaud spending endless hours there, inside or on the terrace. But the truth is, when Parisians talk about café, they're not really referring to those legendary institutions, even though they are undeniably part of the city's heritage. What Parisians mean is the Café du Coin, the café around the corner, the local spot you find in every neighborhood. It's where people stop every morning for their petit crème, where regulars exchange a few words with the waiter, and where conversations start naturally between neighbors. A real Parisian café is an everyday place and, above all, a social space. It's also where many Parisians go for breakfast, whether it's a light one with just a coffee and a croissant, or a more plentiful French breakfast with bread, butter, jam and juice. You go there to start the day, to sit for a moment, to observe the neighborhood walking up around you. And when breakfast time is over, you first go to a café for a drink, and you eat only if you want something simple, maybe a croque-monsieur, a salad, or a sandwich. The menus are small, and cafés have never been about refined cuisine. They're more about routine, familiarity, and a sense of community. And, apart from this previous menu from the Café de Flore, quite cheap prices too. And something many visitors don't know is that a lot of cafés also double as tobacco shops or horse races betting points. It's where people buy cigarettes, play the lotto, or fill out their horse racing tickets while chatting with the staff. These cafes are lively, spontaneous, sometimes noisy, and deeply rooted in daily Parisian life. The kind of place where the city wakes up every morning and interacts throughout the day. Now let's move on to the brasserie, which is already a step up in terms of food and structure. Brasserie, brewery in English, originally come from the Alsatian tradition of brewing beer, and even if most of them don't brew their own beer anymore, they've kept the spirit, generous hospitality, large dining rooms, long opening hours, and food served continuously from morning until late at night. This makes them incredibly practical when you're visiting Paris and you're not used to the strict French meal times. In a brasserie, you can order real dishes almost any time of day, and in some cases, almost any time of night. The most famous example is Le Pied de Cochon, near Les Halles, which serves non-stop food nearly 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That gives you an idea of how deeply service continu is part of the brasserie's DNA. The atmosphere in a traditional brasserie is lively, energetic, and often a little theatrical. You'll see huge mirrors, polished brass bars, stained glass, mosaics, carved wood, and those big Belle Époque or Art Nouveau dining rooms that Paris is famous for. And in the classical Parisian brasserie, you'll almost always find a seafood stand displayed outside on the sidewalk or right at the entrance of the restaurant. The oysters are open directly in front of you, and the seafood platters on ice are a real tradition. Because of this, most brasserie menus actually start with the seafood page before moving on to the French classics. And, speaking of classics, the menus are full of traditional dishes: sauerkraut, steak frites, snails, blanquette de veau, onion soup, beef tartare, or a simple entrecôte. You'll find both elegant, historic brasseries like La Coupole, Vaudeville or Beaufaget, and smaller, more local ones that have the same spirit but a bit less grandeur. What they all share is a long menu, fast service, and extended hours. That's why brasseries are perfect when you are hungry outside the usual French lunch or dinner times. It's also worth mentioning that in Paris, many small restaurants, and even some cafés, call themselves brasseries simply because they serve typical French dishes like steak frites or steak tartare. But these are not real brasseries. A true brasserie is defined by its long opening hours, its large dining room, its wide menu, and historically, it's linked to beer and Alsace. The rest are just borrowing the name. From the brasserie, we now move to the bouillon, which I like to describe as the people's brasserie. Bouillons were created in the 19th century to feed the workers of the old Les Halles market. The concept was extremely simple: a bouillon, meaning a broth made from meat, along with a basic meat dish. It was hearty, quick to serve, and cheap, exactly what workers needed. The formula became so successful that Bouillon Duval, the first chain, expanded rapidly and created what was essentially the earliest fast food restaurant chain in Paris, more than a century before McDonald's. After almost disappearing in the late 20th century, Bouillon have experienced a massive revival in the 21st century. Over the last 15 years, they've become incredibly popular again, attracting both Parisians and visitors thanks to their unbeatable prices and their beautiful historical dining rooms, at least for some of them. This revival is quite recent, and it has made Bouillon one of the most sought-after dining experiences in the city today. The dishes you find in a bouillon are the great classics of French cuisine: onion soup, beef bourguignon, leeks with vinaigrette, egg mayo, or choucroute. They are similar to what you might find in a brasserie, but generally less elaborate, prepared with fewer ingredients and designed to be served quickly. Everything is traditional, generous, comforting, and extremely affordable. That simplicity is part of what defines a bouillon. The atmosphere is fast-paced because bouillons are built on high volume and quick turnover. And unlike brasserie, you cannot book a table at a bouillon. There are simply no reservations, ever. First come, first served. As a result, you'll almost always see long queues outside, especially in the evening. In fact, you usually wait much longer to eat in a bouillon than in a brasserie, simply because the demand is so high. Inside, some of them are truly spectacular. Bouillon Chartier and Bouillon Julien, for example, are wonderful examples of Art Nouveau architecture, with painted ceilings, mirrors, carved wood, mosaics, and early 20th century charm. Others, like Bouillon Pigalle, are more modern and straightforward in their design, focusing on efficiency rather than historical decor. And then there is Bouillon Racine. It is absolutely gorgeous, but given its higher prices, it doesn't really belong to the same bouillon spirit as the more affordable ones. A bouillon is perfect when you want a traditional French meal that is generous, simple, and exceptional value. Just be ready to queue. But for most people, the experience is absolutely worth it. Next comes the bistrot, which is very different from the brasserie, even though many visitors tend to confuse the two. A bistrot is usually smaller, more intimate, and much more personal. Historically, these were simple neighborhood places serving homemade dishes to local workers and residents. And even today, that spirit hasn't disappeared. The word bistro itself has a fun and often told origin story. Many says it comes from the Russian word bistrot, meaning quickly, supposedly shouted by Russian soldiers in Paris in the early 19th century when they wanted to be served faster. Linguists debate how true the story is, but it became so popular over time that it shaped the image of the bistrot, a small place serving simple food quickly in a relaxed atmosphere. In a bistro, the menu is always shorter, often handwritten on a blackboard or scribbled on a sheet of paper that changes every day. The focus is on simplicity and flavor: duck confit, cassoulet, steak frites, seasonal vegetables, or a dish inspired by whatever the chef found at the morning market. You really feel that the cuisine comes from a small kitchen, often with just a couple of cooks working in very close quarters. The atmosphere is warm, lively, and sometimes a little chaotic, in a charming way. Tables are close to one another, conversations mix, glasses clink, and you often have the feeling of stepping into a place that truly belongs to its neighborhood. Many bistros have vintage mirrors, wooden beams, old posters, wine bottles stacked everywhere, or even an open kitchen where you can watch the dishes being prepared just a few meters away. Unlike brasserie, bistros are not open all day. They follow the traditional French meal times, lunch between 12 and 2 and dinner usually starting around 7. If you come at 3 p.m. hoping to get a steak frite, the door will be closed. And that's part of their authenticity. Over the last 15 years, a new generation of bistro has emerged in Paris, bringing the movement known as bistronomie: high-quality ingredients, creative cooking, and a relaxed, unpretentious atmosphere. It's not fine dining, but it's delicious, inventive, and very Parisian. Some of these places have gained real recognition, even from Michelin, while still keeping the bistro spirit. A bistro is the perfect choice if you want something cozy, intimate, and truly local. A place where you feel the character of the chef, the personality of the staff, and the charm of Parisian everyday life. So there you have it, the café, the brasserie, the bouillon, and the bistrot. 4 very different pillars of Parisian food culture, each with its own atmosphere, its own traditions, and its own way of reflecting everyday life in this city. If you want a quick coffee, a simple breakfast, or a place to watch the neighborhood wake up, go to a café. If you want French classics served all day long in a big lively dining room with a bit of theatrical flair, choose a brasserie. If you're looking for great traditional dishes at unbeatable prices and you're patient enough to queue, then a bouillon is the best value you'll find in Paris. And if what you want is warmth, intimacy, seasonal cooking, and a restaurant with real personality, then a bistro is the perfect choice. Each of these places tells a different story about Paris. And the more you explore them, the more you understand how the city really lives, eats, and socializes. If you enjoyed this second episode of the series, please give the video a like and subscribe for more Paris top tips. And tell me in the comments which type of place you prefer and which one you want me to review next. À très bientôt and bon appétit!